the earth that takes it in. When I think we stand beside the rain, listen to the thunder shout. I am, I am, I am, I
Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, comedy on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. And without further ado, it is such a high honor to bring in somebody who was part of the milieu and tapestry of the Southern Oregon psychedelic circus known as the Merry Pranksters. And he came on my radar several times. I am pretty confident that Roy Seaburn mentioned him in our conversations, and then came back up again with Izzy. And my guest is somebody who's a decorated performer, not a musician per se, but somebody who gets on the bandstand, and their job is to take the audience out of their original mindset and get them into the spirit mind so that they can sit back and be entertained. And this cat makes it look somewhat easy, but in reality, that is really some of the hardest stuff to do in the world, and especially in this day and age with the amount of distractions. And one of his partners in crime was the great Ken Kesey, and just here today to talk about leadership and love, overcoming adversity on the bandstand, and the lineage of his yogic practices. Philip Dietz, an honor. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you very much, Jake.
It's an honor, man. Were you always somebody who, were you in theater arts from an early age?
Yes, I went to acting school in New York, and let's see, it was about 1960, 61, 62. Spent a little time in Hollywood, went to Europe. When I came back from Europe, I came to Oregon, and that's when I met Ken. You know, Ken was a very, very inclusive in his theater movement. He wanted you to be involved. It wasn't just actors on the stage. It was the audience involvement that really was key to what he was doing. And that's what really made it just lovely to be around.
That is so beautiful because, I mean, basically that template is so, it's so interesting. When you went to school in New York, in acting school, was there a curriculum? I mean, what's interesting is that a lot of the jazzers that I interview, if you were playing quote unquote jazz music in 1965 and going to Juilliard, there was no jazz program. There were maybe 2 jazz curriculums in the whole United States, and so people were literally making up the language on their own with their peers. Would you say that there was an element of growth in theater arts at that time? Was there really any curriculum at that time, or were you guys kind of cutting it up?
Well, that time was right before method acting came on the scene and became the way to do it. And prior to that, it was kind of catch, can. Yeah, you had a curriculum that you followed, but it was really loose.
I love it. I love this. So tell me about, like, what was, and I'm just curious also, like, because so many cats, if they went to Berkeley or North Texas and they were going to school, they were already professional musicians. A lot of cats would come off the road just to get off the road because the road can eat you alive, or they would learn a new instrument, but they were already professional musicians, whereas today you have cats who are paying ungodly amounts of money to go to institutions. And because the significance of music has changed so much in our culture, there really is no guarantee that there's any work for them outside of college. What was the future of acting when you was there a lively? Were you considered a profession?
Well, let's see.
Yeah.
How
Just
can I
go.
answer
Just
that?
go where you go, man. You're on the stage right now, man.
There is no future in acting.
All right. Well, I mean, then why were you crazy enough to do it?
In you, it's performing is somehow something that you almost have to do. It's Ken was that way. He loved being on stage. He was a magician. He just loved performing, and that's who we are. We love performing. We love being on the stage. We love working the instrument. You know, and your body is your instrument.
That's right.
You have to train it.
But I mean, when you went to Europe, did you have some gigs there? I mean, or you just went to travel? I'm just trying to. I mean, because Ken went. Babs told me, Ken went to Hollywood, but he was beat out by a guy named Paul Newman. Those blue eyes. He couldn't do it. So he just got. There was just one better than him. But actually, he said failure is the greatest thing that can happen. That was one of his lines. But were you? Were you gigging in Europe, or was that just sort of?
No, I was in Hollywood at the time, and my father died, and I inherited a little bit of money, and I went to Europe for a year, and just traveled.
So interesting. So then and then why did you choose to come back to the bastion of Eugene or Oregon? I mean, because that is God's. It still remains God. I mean, I feel terrible with the horrible fires, and it's just unbelievable, but. Man, that is still every time I think about that state, it's just it's the greatest piece of land in this country.
Well, you have to understand Hollywood, and why I came here is because in Hollywood, it's like, oh, I really enjoyed what you did. I think I can use you. I'll give you a call. We'll do lunch. That means no. It means goodbye.
That means you'll never hear from me again.
You know it. And it's hard to live under those circumstances. And when I came back from Europe, I just didn't want to do that. And I was in St. Louis, and somebody read a letter, said, oh, I'm living out in Oregon, and I need some help. We're going to live communally. So I went out there. I had a ball of hash that I brought back from Europe. And I came to Oregon and found these people and started working on the commune.
Okay, now just for a minute, my brain is splitting open right now because I'm really going to go out on a limb here. But were you hipped to the commune by Arzinia Richardson? Because Arzinia is a dear friend, and maybe that was where I first heard your name. But because he was ripping it up. In the ghettos of St. Louis he was playing for tap dancers, man. Those guys were on fire. Were you part of that contingent?
No. Arzini and I grew up in St. Louis.
Oh, this is warming my heart. This is better than Thanksgiving right now, dude.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Tell me about when you first connected with Arzinia.
Oh, it was actually out here.
Unbelievable. Wait, so you both came from there but never knew each other in St. Or you never? No, I'm sorry, you weren't there, but you were there at the time.
Yeah, I when I came back, that's when I met him. And the whole letter and reading about Oregon happened in St. Louis with Arzinia, but we didn't really get to know each other until we moved out here. And there was the commune didn't work. Arzinia was hitting on Judy, and Jerome was hitting on Ginger, and it turned into the commune who was screwing everybody, and so it just
like an orgy fest kind of. It was just a little.
Yeah.
Wait, so I just want to be clear because I've done 2 interviews with Arzinia, and so you did like maybe like when you got to St. Louis, somehow you connected with him and you were reading the same letter. I want to be clear that you got to know each other out in Eugene, but did you connect first in St. Louis, and who was the letter sent from?
We met in St. Louis.
You met there, okay.
Right. And the letter was sent by somebody who was already in Oregon to Jerome and Judy and Arzenia. So.
Man. So you at the time, because I mean Arzenia, what can I say? He was an established post bop jazz, or pretty entrenched, and then he got involved with Earl. The Kings. I can't remember their full. I have to look up the names. But really amazing jazz players, a husband and wife in Eugene. But then, so his incentive was to go out there and live a simpler life. But for you, maybe that's the wrong word. But it was to get out of the racket or the rat. But the point is that what was your. So you were hip to Kesey because you knew his writings, but you had not met him before.
That's right. I hadn't met him. I was very familiar. Everyone of my age group, was familiar with the electric Kool-Aid acid test. And so when I came up here, I was really familiar that he was here. But my wife got a job with the Springfield Creamery.
Of course, yes. This is so beautiful. My God.
And so shortly after that, I got a job with the Springfield Creamery. And that's where we really got to know the Keseys, and I became the plant manager of the creamery. And the rest is history with Nancy's Honey Yogurt. The only person who worked there longer than my wife was Nancy.
Unbelievable.
And of course Chuck and Sue.
Well, yeah, Chuck. I mean, so what year did you come did you move to Eugene?
I came back from Europe in 71, and I'd say early 72, right around 72, I was here.
Well, can you talk, as best as memory serves, wasn't that, I mean, when you got out there, the creamery was not in good financial shape, is that right?
No, the creamery was not in good financial shape. There was a little hiccup where one of the distributors had run up a big bill. And so that's when Chuck and Sue asked the Grateful Dead to do a concert, which they did, and that concert is what saved the creamery.
So talk a little bit about your how much, like, were you there that day? I mean, can you talk about that experience in Veneta?
Oh yeah, in 72.
Yeah, well, because that saved the creamery, and then I don't know how much after that Nancy came along with Nancy's Yogurt, but I mean,
no, Nancy was there way before the we were running batches of yogurt when we first started, 100 gallons at a time.
Oh my God!
and by the time I started with the creamery, it went up to 2, 3, 4. Pretty soon it was up to 1,000 gallons a week. So it really changed things.
Well, I just want to read this from one of my radio interviews with Arzenia, and then have you riff on this. He's like, so he was in a group called the Black Artist Group. He said the Black Artist Group I had been playing in broke up, so I had a few people that my family was associated with decided we were going to pool all of our money and buy a farm in Cottage Grove, Oregon. We were looking forward to living in a commune there. One day, I drove into Eugene and saw Sonny King playing with a group at a bar. I said to him, "Hey, man, we're going to play music together. I'll see you in a couple months." I just knew that we would play together, but I needed some time to move my family. Once we were settled, I found out where Sonny was playing in Eugene, and we met. From that day on, I was his bass player. I was also doing a radio show at KLCC in Eugene called Pure Jazz. I would have guys like Bill Evans come in and do an interview about things that we had collaborated on. I met Ken Kesey at KLCC, and we really hit it off big time. Kesey would invite me to play bass when he was reading his novels. It involved a quartet with my dear friend Steven Schuster, Art Maddox, Kesey, and myself. I mean, you're part of that. I mean, I cannot believe that what an honor it is to talk to you. I mean, did you, outside of singing for your supper because you were working at the creamery, can you talk about when the light bulb went off about Dietz getting involved in entertainment and creation with the Pranksters? Like, is there a seminal kind of story when you started to realize that your talents were going to really lend themselves perfectly to this group?
Ooh. Okay, rephrase that question.
You know what it is, like, you clearly, this commune thing has to be explored deeper, but at this,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, like, how come of all places it was Cottage Grove, and was there rumblings in St. Louis that there was really this alternative? It's amazing to me that of all places you wound up there.
Okay, let me straighten out. Arzenia may be the largest exaggerator
He's doing the best he can
about many things.
Okay.
He didn't put any money into it.
Of course he didn't. Yeah, no, he didn't have any money.
This was all sponsored by Doc Webb and Jerome Garger.
Wow. Those are names that are not in my vernacular right now.
Okay.
Okay, so those were St. Louis cats that were hip to the scene out there.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. Well, no, they decided they wanted to live communally, and they had men in St. Louis, and Doc had money, and Jerome was a school teacher, taught college, so they had some bucks. And how Arzenia got in there, I'm not quite sure, because what he had was a major mouth. So.
Well, he must have been a badass player too, though. But I mean,
his bass, he played bass. He really did.
So I just want to be clear, though, because we're talking to Phil Dietz here on the Jake Feinberg Show, and he's already been blowing my mind. Can you talk just about, like, did you have an acting gig? Did you didn't like the Hollywood racket? So obviously, but I mean, were you performing in St. Louis at all? Were you gigging at that time?
Well, yeah, in St. Louis, after I'd gotten out of acting school, I came back and did a year's worth of theater in St. Louis, and then the theater burned down, and that's about when I moved to Hollywood. And so let me tell you how I got involved.
Break it down.
I knew what was going on, and I just went out to the farm one day to talk to Ken. And I told him, I said, I wanted to be part of the troupe. And he didn't say anything. And about 2 weeks later, he called and he said, we're having a meeting. We're going to have a luncheon. So I went to the luncheon, and he said, oh, by the way, we're going to do a play. It's called Twister. And Phil, you're going to be the Scarecrow. And that was the beginning of it, where I actively got involved with Ken and theater at the same time. I mean, I had done the hoo-has with him and been all along for that scene, but this was different. This was actually working on a play that Ken had written.
So I just want to be. I also just for chronology's sake here. Doc and the other cat, Jerome, those cats were in St. Louis, and they called you in L.A. and were like, "Yo, we're going up here." You weren't. Is that what happened?
No. They're both from St. Louis,
right?
And when I came back from Europe, we met in St. Louis, very briefly,
right?
Because then I headed out here,
right? So you headed, so you all read the letter, and did you travel out all at the same time from St. Louis, or?
No. It was all separate. Doc Webb came out first, and then Jerome, and then Arzenia.
And then I don't want to jump too far ahead. I mean, you went to, so you wound up living at a commune, and I mean, did you and your wife, were you able to stay on the straight and narrow, or did you wind up kind of in this orgy milieu?
Well, I hadn't met my wife yet.
That was probably a good thing.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
And I met her shortly after that.
Oh, this is the greatest thing of all. So you came, what was your first impression of Cottage Grove? I mean, to me, it must have been. I mean, it was a little bit different than any. You know, you had been kind of an urban cat up to that point, really.
Yeah, I'd call it podunk.
What you call it podunk?
But it has developed into a marvelous little city now. But when we were there, the police would come out and look at our land and make sure we weren't doing anything, and we had undercover police coming out, and yeah, they were serious because we were the hippies in the neighborhood.
This is so remarkable.
We were 5 miles from the town.
Let me ask you something, just for my own, like, at 42 years old, it's just so important for my generation and younger generations, my daughters, to understand how innocent and, there was debauchery, but it wasn't like, I don't know, man, like, there was no, people weren't getting, there was nothing, criminals, it's a fine line, but I mean, what was it that was really amping up? Like the local police were like, these cats are just smoking a lot of weed. I mean, what were they worried about exactly?
Well, I'm sure that's what they suspected.
Right.
Doing something that they didn't have anything to do.
So I mean, because at that time, I mean, what's amazing is that I guess marijuana was still like an incredibly criminalized drug at that time.
Yes.
But yet, if you were pulled over for alcohol, there was no crime for DUI at that time. Nothing. No. I mean, they just be like, go get home safe, or we'll drive you home. I mean, it was that for my generation, that's remarkable. And I just, when you felt, did you feel that was the first time in your life that you had found your people when you got out there? Had you ever?
Well, yeah. After reading the electric Kool-Aid acid test, I knew who my people were.
I love this, dude.
And then it's just a matter of connecting up with them, And it was a very slow process. I'm not pushy, and Ken is very wary of who he takes into his collective, and I understand that. So he was always very gentle and nice to me. I can't say enough nice things about Ken, although he could be an absolute terror when he wanted to be, and just could scare the living crap out of you.
Really?
Well, he at one point he had diabetes, and when we were doing the hoo-has, he didn't know he had diabetes, and so he had a couple incidences where his blood sugar dropped so low, and he went off into tirades about the band wasn't doing it right or what, and no one knew what was going on. And then pretty soon we went, he's got diabetes. That's what's causing these mood swings.
Right.
And then everything was fine. It went away because they handled the problem.
When let's just be clear. Philip Dietz, graduate of what acting school?
The American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
1960.
Yeah.
And then you recognize that when Wolf's book came out, that those were your people. So can you talk about the collective? This is really the interest for me. Can you talk about the LSD was legal in the early 60s. It was government produced. It was about as pure as you could possibly get. So can you talk about your psychedelic experiences on the East Coast? I mean, Richard Alpert, and otherwise known as Ram Dass, and Tim Leary had that April experiment in '64 at Boston University where they gave 10 cats a placebo cocktail, and they gave the other 10 cats this god drug of acid, and so there's a lot going on, and obviously you had been tripping out before you read Tom Wolfe's book. So can you talk about a multi-dimensional experience that you had early on LSD.
No, because I never had any. I didn't take LSD. Well, the first drug I ever took was mescaline in Yosemite,
Mm-hmm.
and that was in the mid-'60s probably. And then I didn't take LSD until I was in Hollywood, and that had to be around 67. I'm really vague on times.
Oh, it's fine. But so, I mean, how did you tell me about the
And
yeah.
can you imagine taking acid in Hollywood?
It sounds like an absolute. Well, it sounds like a bad trip already. Really.
Yeah, of course it didn't turn out to be. It's acid.
Well, if you get the right dose and you're in the good frame of mind with the right people, you're gonna. It doesn't matter where you are, man.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Beatles were doing "Here Comes the Sun."
Oh yeah, there you go. Then every. So tell me about the. I mean, for those who are listening and maybe not totally hip to the electric Kool-Aid, what acid test? What made you feel aligned with those kinds of cats?
Oh, that they were going out and just throwing parties with lighting and shows, and you just go, oh, yeah, that's where it's at, and they're doing something. They're not just sitting around watching things. They're actively doing something.
They're actively doing stuff. So that was yes.
And that's what Twister was all about. It's getting people off their ass and participating. And when you had 300 people participating, it's a great thing. It's a collective.
Absolutely. No, can you? Yeah, this is important. Can you talk about because sometimes you walk in to as if you're somebody who's proactive, if you're acting and you're trying to inspire regular cats to get involved, it can be a challenge in a big way because a lot of people are not extroverted or they're not in great shape, and that's. I mean, can you talk about the skills that it takes leadership wise, whether it was from you or Kesey or whatever, about witnessing a collective that was kind of morose or moribund to start, and by the end of the gig it was frenzied. I mean, to me it's about inspiration. My whole show is about that. But in order to do that, you have to get people out of their thinking mind.
Right. We have a marvelous incident at one of college shows. There was some guy in the back of the room who kept yelling out things kind of toward the end of the show. And Ken recognized that he wanted to participate. And he said, "Come on down, man. Come on up on the stage." And he ushers him up on the stage. And once the guy got there, he found out he didn't have anything to say.
Wow.
But he was part of it. And that's all he wanted to be. He was on stage with the pranksters. Whoa. He was mind blown. That's all he wanted. And Ken just helped him. And he recognized that, That's what was nice. That's what was nice about that show is, you recognize what was going on and you participated.
When you remember was that the first time what was the first time you actually met him? Was it when you went to the farm to meet him, or when did you first?
Oh, when he came to the creamery. He would come by the creamery, once or twice a week.
And can you talk a little bit about? I mean, because I think Chuck also. I mean, he is so. I've been I had a great opportunity to be with him at the Christmas party last year, but he's this is not his comfort zone. Is to he's not a big talker. But Dear Dick said that Chuck was as big a prankster as anybody else.
Yes, he was. He was there the whole time, and you have to remember that Ken, when he brought these drugs home, who'd he take them to? He took them to his brother.
Well, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so he took. So I mean, Chuck was dosing. I mean, Chuck was tripping out at the creamery quite a bit. I mean, is that?
No. how to put this? Chuck may have microdosed himself occasionally,
Right.
but he wasn't going around getting dosed unless you had a major party going on. You know, when the Grateful Dead played, well, yeah, then he went to his dropper bottle.
Dude, this is the greatest story I've ever heard in my life. I mean, but you were not, you tripped out in Hollywood, but you were kind of more like, I mean, setting the drugs aside, you were like, I want to be at a proactive commune type area where people are doing stuff. Is that fair to say? Like that was your sort of your mantra?
Sure. Yes, it was.
And so, and what? Let me ask you. This is keeps popping into my head. Talk about pre method acting. That to me sounds like why you got into acting. I mean, can you talk about how fluid it was and how because that's what the brilliance of when music wasn't codified into these curriculums and languages. You can't teach this stuff in the academy. And the same thing is with acting. I mean, pre-method acting for Philip Dietz, like what did that look like? How was it different than, the whatever method acting is?
Well, okay. Pre-method is more of a rote. You learn the lines, you learn your moves. Where method is you're using the emotion and letting the emotion play the scene. I don't know whether I can be any more clear than that.
Well, I mean, did you actually were you able to apply that early on in your career before?
No. Later on in my career, yes, but that's a difficult one to get to know because you're transforming yourself into someone else, and you're allowing that to happen. It's kind of a sacred thing between you and the character. And the character then is allowed to play. And you as an actor don't do anything. The character takes over and plays. And the character listens. And the character talks. It's not you listening. It's the character hears things differently. The character hears what you're saying as the character hears. Not just use the actor on stage. It's all very unclear, Jake.
Well, that's going to take me a while to get my head around that. I mean, were you? I mean, I can't see you. Were you part of the? I mean, I can't think of a better place to be than New York City in the early part of the 1960s. I mean, the amount of music and art that was being created there. New stuff was incredible. I mean, were you going to the Gaslight to see Hugh Romney? I mean, did you go, where were you, what were you doing culturally at that time? I don't think you were sitting in your dorm room.
No, but you have to remember, I was very poor.
Right. But the cost of living was very, very little then.
Yeah, but when you're an acting
right,
student,
when you're an acting student, you're really poor. I get it,
yeah. And so you don't really get out much, and you don't get to explore the places where you have to pay money.
Right, so you were, you felt like, can you talk about, I think for me, doing my show, and, I appreciate how, you're hip to it and you support it, but for me, success is only based on individual voice, singularity, uniqueness, and cutting above the morass of everybody else doing essentially what your trade or craft is. Can you talk about how over the years, and when you got to a point when you felt like you discovered your own individual voice in acting, like what allowed you to cut through the morass?
Twister allowed me to cut through.
So let's just go through that. Explain that.
Working with Ken. Well, there was never any pressure in Twister. You had a great deal of fun, and there was if mistakes were made, they didn't matter. You just went on. I don't know. Some of this is. I'm drifting away from what your question was.
No, you're not. You're just no. The point is that you would go in with when stuff like that was right from the get-go. It's like musicians too. In today's world, we have all this technology to make everything perfect. A lot of people take that on the bandstand and they try to be perfect, but that's not what they don't realize is that mistakes, gaffes, can be gateways to expansion of vocabulary. And the audience ain't going to know anyway if you made a mistake or not.
That's exactly
right. I mean, that was the so Ken's he has such an unorthodox but authentic style that must have been liberating for you. Now, I mean, I throw on the Wizard of Oz for my younger daughter on record still, and you know, but were these characters the conventional characters? Were you like sitting around with Walker and Babs reading scripts? I mean, how did it all work?
Yeah, it was the script. The script was almost completed when we started rehearsal, and we rehearsed for a couple of weeks in the bus barn, and
the bus barn, yes,
yeah, where the bus was kept, and pretty soon they finally finished it because we were calling to we're ready, where's the rest of the script? So they finally finished up the script, and I forget where I'm going with that.
Well, this is like, let's see, they had I'm reading this from Izzy, and I want you to riff on this. He said they had canceled a Grateful Dead appearance here in Eugene, so Kesey held a session out at the farm. Phil Dietz was a friend of mine at the time, and he was a close compadre of Kesey's. Dietz was part of the Springfield Creamery crowd. That's how I wound up going there. There was a lot going on there. It was a mecca for a certain kind of people. After that, Kesey did a show called Twister, and I got involved with that in '94. Years earlier, I had a monk's robe made with the cowl, and I used that in the show.
Yeah.
Kesey had me out front. I was wandering around the audience with a lantern, looking into people's faces. I was searching for the honest truth. What was your as the Scarecrow? We know him in the film. He doesn't have a heart? What is he lacking in the? How was the correlation to the Scarecrow in Twister?
He didn't have a brain.
Thank you. He didn't have a brain.
Right, and so in Ken's on Twister, Ken educated him, and he became a professor. And so he had a brain, and he was smart. And
was the idea that the Scarecrow always had the brain? He just needed somebody to work with him at it to get him to get it to work.
No, I think he needed a brain.
He needed a brain.
Yeah, that's right. He was made out of straw.
That's right. Thank you. The Tin Man needed the heart. No, the lion needed courage.
Well, but there was no lion. There was Babs, who was playing a Frankenstein. Well, he didn't want to copy it exactly.
Of course. No, I mean, those early, when you went to him and said, I want to be part of the troupe, and then he called you back, can you talk about the rehearsals? Because I remember acting in school, and they were pretty tedious, and I would assume that Kesey's rehearsals were what was that like? Was there a huge amount of lines to learn, or were you guys just sort of just kicking it around? I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road for my show, man.
Well, yeah, there weren't a heck of a lot of lines. It was pretty evenly split up between the Scarecrow and Tin Man and Frankenstein and, of course, the Wizard, Ken. And so we all had a fair amount to say. And Okay, I'm getting to the stage here.
No, I think you're doing. Were you playing? I mean, Walker had the saxophone, and Babs had the trombone. Was there musical? Were you a musical partner in this whole thing?
Yes, yeah, I sang. I had a couple of songs.
Is there a chance you could sing one right now?
You see, here in Oz, we've got a name for the, let's see, for the wind's destructive powers. Unlike the trees known by their name, it's known by what it devours. Some call it void with vacancy, some call it deprivation, but folks way down in Emerald Town, they call the wind starvation. Starvation, starvation, they call the wind starvation. That was a little.
Oh my, dude, are you kidding me? The day after Thanksgiving 2020. Thank you, Philip Dietz, man. Wait, okay, so
You know, I know half the lines still.
I'm sorry, but that is so I just want to be clear. Going through these unorthodox things, I mean, we're not only did Kesey, he didn't care if you made mistakes, just move on and keep burning, but how much creative control, was that a song you riffed on? Did you make up that, or was the entire script written?
No, Ken wrote that.
Brilliant. So then you delivered it. What were some of the, I mean, I mean, this might be self-explanatory, but it wasn't like, you were, you weren't like, you really weren't a hippie, music head cat. Like you were, what was it about? How did you get hip if you didn't? So when you went to his farm, when you initially said, I want to be part of the troupe, what was so intriguing? What was it just like a magnet pulling you towards that thing? I'm just trying to figure out why it was why you wanted to be part of it. I mean, what was it? Because you didn't know anybody. You didn't know Babs at that time. You didn't know anybody. You didn't know Walker. You had read this. You had read a book about the acid tests, and it's hard for me to always. I always kind of get confused about when. I guess Cuckoo's Nest was written in '65, but it didn't hit the screen till '75. And then, sometimes A Great Notion. There was all this stuff floating around, but then there's, you would say that at a certain point, did you start working at the Creamery before you knew Ken? Did you get to know Chuck closer? Were you closer with them before?
Yes, yeah. I started working after my wife, I started working there, and then I started working there and got to know Chuck and Sue very, very well, sleeping on their living room floor.
Oh, this is so. I would have been sleeping right there along. I mean, that is so beautiful, man. They were just like Arkansans, right? They were from Arkansas. Like the family was from Arkansas, right?
Well, the original family, Grandma was from Arkansas.
Grandma was from Arkansas. So how much? So when you got there, like, was that Grandma? Did you ever get to meet that Grandma, or did you?
Yeah, Grandma Smith. She was a lovely lady, but she was in the latter stages of Alzheimer's about that point, and they would find her wandering around occasionally. And
in the cream. What did the cream? So that, but if I remember correctly, it was sort of mythological, but then it got demystified because by '67, those cats. I mean, you were tripping out in Hollywood, but that's when Babs and Kesey crawled under the concrete and got the heck out of San Francisco. But I just assumed that Kesey bought that land, but no, that was his family's land. Already. That was already their land. And is that right?
I think Chuck actually was the first one to buy it.
That's what I think. So Chuck, or it was, yeah, that's what I'm trying to trace back. Like, so Grandma Smith was from one side of the family. I guess what was when you first started? What was your job there? I mean, Dear Dick was telling me these harrowing stories about showing up with tractor trailers and having to I mean, him and Chuck did some amazing work getting stuff back to the Creamery. Were you part of the sort of the assembly lines? What were you saying? What were you doing at the Creamery?
Well, I started off washing buckets
I love it. I freaking love this. You were washing. You
And-
got off the floor in the morning. Was there
Yes.
coffee, or I mean, how would you start the day?
Well, by washing cream cans.
You gonna have some sustenance. You gotta get some food in you. I mean, like I just am trying to figure out like when you would get up, Chuck would be getting the milking the cows. Like what was the kind of routine like?
Okay. The milk was delivered to the creamery in a tanker.
Right.
We could store up to 1,500 gallons of milk. So that would be delivered, and then I would take and process it. I'd put powdered milk in it, run it through the pasteurizer and homogenizer, and then somebody else would package it. Well, when I first started, I was the packager and working until 4 o'clock in the morning packaging yogurt. And then finally I said, and got to the position where I could control things and make it run on a little more even keel.
I dig. So what was the turning point? Like obviously there was the concert, but to help the creamery, which was not in good financial shape. But then just educate me as to how Nancy's Yogurt became an international brand. Branding was not. In fact, it was so unhip back then. It was the last. I mean, even musicians, if you went up to a cat, and said, "Hey, man, you sounded great. You sounded just like so and so," they'd want to slit their wrists. Everybody wanted to be different. Branding was not cool. It was very local. But when did Nancy's get to this point where here in Tucson I can go and it's in every grocery store, every health food market, and it is everywhere. But that's not what it was like in '72.
Right. So when I first started working there, Black Maria was making the yogurt.
Now who's that?
Carolyn,
Oh yeah, I kind of remember Black Maria. That was her name.
Yeah, well, that was a prankster name. Carolyn Hanna,
I love this. Okay, Black Maria.
right, was making the yogurt, and I had just come back from Europe, of course,
Right.
and had tasted the Greek yogurt, which was straight yogurt, no sugar, no nothing. If you wanted sugar, you put on sugar afterwards.
Right.
So when Marie was making it, she was putting in 10 gallons of honey to like 100 gallons of yogurt. And to me, I went, oh my God, this is dreadful. So I talked to Sue and I said, Sue, could I cut back on this honey a little bit? She said, yeah, go ahead and try. So I start off first using half the amount of honey and then cut it back to like a quarter, and it brought it into line with European yogurt, taste-wise. And it pretty well started taking off after. Nobody knew what the hell yogurt tasted like here when the cream was
Yeah, right.
making.
Exactly. It was so unsophisticated. They didn't know what they were.
You had Yoplait and something else, which of course was all sugar. And so the creamery came out with a really nice product that wasn't the sugary thing.
And you were getting like you were on salary or like at that point, or were you?
Well,
I mean, this is the great. I cannot. So eventually, did you get did you like you were sleeping on the floor?
Well, no.
Once you hipped Black Maria to the honey thing, maybe you got a raise or something. I don't know.
No. The creamery was so poor that in order to get packaging to put the yogurt into, Jan and I would leave our salaries with the creamery.
Wow.
So they didn't have to pay us. And we would just take what we needed to survive for that period of time. Of course, it all came back later, but that's what we needed to do to survive.
So let's talk about that, because I think it's really a beautiful concept in this time of, I mean, even the Pope came out yesterday and said, stop the selfishness. I mean, the hoarding and the insane greed is, I mean, the two cats that we miss the most from a culturally pejorative point of view is Kesey and Hunter S. Thompson right now.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. And so I'm venturing to say no contracts were ever signed. There were no real lawyers and things like that. So basically, when Nancy's exploded as a full-blown chain, or that's when you were able to, I mean, how was it all, I mean, you reaped the benefits of that in your own way?
Well, yeah, of course. You know, the more money they made, then more they could pass on.
Right, but I mean, like, it was more just through trust, right? I mean, it wasn't like there were contracts. I mean, here you are,
No.
your wife, and
It's all shake hands.
This
type
is
thing.
so cool, man. Like, that to me is why you love that commune over. I mean, that is what it was about. Blood is thicker than water. I mean, it must have felt like. do you, a guy who's just been just impossible to track down, and I obviously he's a legend, but doesn't talk a lot. Did you cross paths with Mike Hagan?
Yeah, sure.
So what was I mean, everybody had their own roles. I mean,
Yeah.
Babs. Yeah, what was because I mean, Walker is a funny guy and a jokes, and he's got humor and he's really bright and he can speak well. He can obviously act well. He's not the best musician by any means, but Babs was a straight out just like. He played hoops. Again, Oscar Robertson took him to the woodshed a few times at Miami, Ohio. Also went to Vietnam. Kesey, obviously, we've been chronicling his path. Dietz, you had your path. What was Hagen's contribution to that whole scene? I mean, aside from, the whole old joke of him, basically, the camera got screwed up on the original bus trip. But beyond that, how was he part of the milieu?
Well, they went to college together.
Kesey and him.
Yeah, and Hagan has this remarkable ability to shake things off, particularly negative things.
I love this.
And Ken tells the story about Hagan threw this party. It was going to be a gambling party, and he would provide drinks and all of the games, and he would front the money, and of course, he lost everything. Everybody won but him. And Ken said, I went back the next morning, and he said, here was Hagan sleeping on the floor. And he said, I woke him up, and he said, he jumped up and started dancing and said, well, sometimes you win a little, lose a little. And he said, that's who he was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa, man, that's fucking cool.
He's a remarkable guy, and you never talked to him, did you?
No, the old line is, he doesn't talk to anybody. But I mean, Jake Feinberg. That's fine. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But I know he must have been a loyal, and so he really was the first out of all the original pranksters. He was the one that Kesey met first in college.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
I think George was in college at the same time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how Walker actually came on the scene, because Babs, they met at Stanford. Was Walker at Perry Lane? I think Walker was living in Berkeley at a certain period, and then he wound up at Perry Lane, which was when you were on the other side of the country in New York at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, what was this guy's been in my heart, and I don't know why, because I've never met any of these cats, and I mean, the only guys I know are Walker and Babs, and that's just in the last couple of years. But do you remember when Jed Kesey passed away? Do you remember what happened after that with Ken? I mean, it took him a while to get out of it. I feel like were there opportunities for you to support him, basically, because I don't know, I was, reading about Ken's passing, and, he passed away in his sleep, and, and I just wonder if you can talk about, everyone's always talking about great Ken Kesey stories, but everyone's fallible, and everyone takes a blow, and that thing with Jed, I remember when I interviewed Zane, Jed was the superstar kid of the family. He was the best athlete, and he wasn't a show off. It's just he was super talented cat. And then Zane,
he was really a neat kid.
Yeah.
He was just a lovely young man. It was a real tragedy when that happened, and you try to hunker down around Ken, but he pretty much takes it all on himself.
That's really what I was trying to get through in that Mishigosh there, is that you would try. You could not. He didn't want he took it on himself. He didn't necessarily want somebody, maybe not outside of Faye or whatever, but I mean, he did not want other people trying to help him.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. So you continue at the creamery, and at a certain point, you and Jan, your wife's name is Jan, is that right?
Yes.
So you guys were just taking what you needed to survive. You modified the honey, and then, I mean, all of a sudden, were you able to? I mean, was the acting? I'm trying to envision Eugene in '73 or thereabouts, and what were the venues outside of like the parties at the barn? What were the venues that? I mean,
there were two theater troupes going on here, and one started and then evolved into another one, and I'd been working with the local people, and then I kind of branched out because I wanted to direct, and I teamed up with a local playwright and another theater director, and we started our own theater and produced about 5 or 6 original shows.
Well, can we get some names here? I mean, you don't leave me hanging here. Who was the original troops, and then I need to know these original shows you produced, and what were the venues that were welcoming to this avant-garde theater?
Let's see. They were small taverns.
Oh, I love it. They were taverns.
Yeah.
So they were bars.
Yes.
This is so out of
a train ran by one of them. So when we were doing the show, you see the actors pause for about 4 minutes while the train went by.
It's like, we're taking a quick break here. Would they just freeze frame themselves? They get frozen in place for 4 minutes.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh my God! Wait, in all fairness, I mean, a bar can be. I mean, it's hard enough sometimes when you're there to have a spiritual discharge with music, and it's a tavern, and people are not there for the music, and they're talking over it. I mean, there was you were able to get the volume to a din, like to a point where you could get your point across. I mean, it would seem like it could get a little out of control.
Yeah, we also had a major, the Holt Center, which is
but that didn't come along till 83, 82.
Yeah.
That was that and that place. Don't even get me started on that. How insane, how beautiful that was. Were you? I think that's what Izzy was saying. You're the one that raised all the money for that place.
No. Yeah, it had to be somebody else.
Okay, I'm going to look that up. So basically, what are the names of the theater troupes? And what I'm hearing is that the Kesey Collective was not either one of those troupes.
No, they weren't. No. Ken was doing his own readings and things like that. Trick of the Squirrel, that he had to work with our zine.
Right. Oh no, dude, you know who this cat was? This is who I wanted. Ed Ragazzino. That's the cat who. So was Ed part of these original troupes, or who was in those?
No. Ed was at Lane Community College.
Oh, he's at Lane CC. Okay, so you got involved with these troupes, and what kind of roles were you playing with these troupes in the early 70s?
Oh well, Noel Coward. Let's see, I did Dracula, was one of my favorites.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there any footage of this? We need footage of this stuff.
No.
No audio, no video, nothing. It was never.
No, there is a radio play that Babs wrote that exists.
Whoa. Where is it?
Let's see.
And do we know the name of it?
Yeah, you will in a minute.
Wait a minute. There was Babs wrote a radio play.
Yeah,
Oh my.
and we recorded it at our local theater. We just met one afternoon. I organized all the actors, and we just went in and did a cold reading of it. And Babs taped it and edited. It was and it turned out to be pretty good. And as a matter of fact, I got a compliment from Ken on that. He and Babs were listening to the show going to the coast, and Kesey said, "Well, who the hell's that?" He said, "He's reading that pretty well." That's Phil. Oh, okay.
That's Phil, man. That's so. What's the dude? Get me the name. Can you get me? We got a name on it?
On what?
On the radio play.
It's called Unwritten History. It's about
Dude,
Joaquin Miller.
Who's that?
He was a local writer.
Can you just talk about the concept of? I feel like so much of my program is about improvisation, but also like basically like I mean again I was relentless in hounding you to come on the program, but at the same time there's something magical about creating something out of nothing. And Kesey was a magician. Would you say that there are younger cats who were privy to him doing his quote unquote readings at the university, probably checking out all the beautiful women there, but I mean really, I mean people said he could hypnotize you. Was he a hypnotist?
Yes, yeah, he was. I'm not sure how really good he was at it, but
now why would
he was a ventriloquist too.
He was?
Yeah.
Oh my!
I mean, you could see his lips move a little, but
no, I mean obviously he wasn't like
job.
Yeah. It does. He did. So what was the first time you witnessed him? Because I mean that's the magic of Kesey, is that through his storytelling, it was non-hypnotic hypnotism. Like he would tell stories, and could enrapture a completely LSD-induced, LSD-laden group.
Yeah.
Do you have a story? I mean, because people was there a time when it really, really dawned on you early on, before you really knew him, when you saw him take control of an audience and own the entire room?
Yeah, but I'll relate this story.
Yeah, go ahead.
One day at the farm, some Sunday afternoon, the usual 35 people were there with their kids.
Oh my God, I love it.
And Ken got the kids, and he said, "Come over to this hole over here, and I want you to listen and see what you hear." And when you put your ear down to the hole, you would hear, you go, "What the hell?" Ken goes, "Yeah, that's the woozle." And he said, "You have to be careful." He said, "That woozle almost bit me one time." And he said, "Maybe we can get him to come down to the end of the hole and you can see him." And he said, "Maybe I can grab him." So all the kids are going, come on down, woozle. And Ken suddenly sticks his hand up this pipe and goes, oh my God, I got it. Oh, no, it's got me. And his legs are flailing in the air, and his arms are flailing, and he finally rips this arm out of the pipe, and off, flying out of his hair, is a little piece of fur. And it looked to be white, but you couldn't really tell. And that's how he entertained the kids. And he was just the best make-up storyteller in the world. And the woozle, by the way, was Roy Seaburn at the other end of the pipe, which was about 50 feet away.
I cannot believe you just dropped Seaburn's name. That is so. So he was just sort of humming through the other end of the pipe, making those noises.
Exactly, yeah, making all these little.
And he duped all the kids.
Yes,
yeah, I mean,
he duped me.
Of course he did. Yeah, I mean, it's just so minimalist and yet so brilliant. It's unbelievable. Were you? I mean, like going back to Arzenia, the embellisher, the exaggerator. He said that Owsley Stanley was on the scene when he got out there. Did you run into Owsley once in a while?
Only one time.
Only one time.
Yeah, and I forget what the concert was, but he showed up, and he came out to the creamery, and Ken was out there, and Ozzy goes, "Hey, Ken, look at this," and he makes a big muscle on his arm. I went, "What? Okay."
Yeah, right. So were you the generally speaking the concerts that you would attend were they at Outson Stadium, MacArthur Court? Where were you going to see like when the Dead would come to town? Where would you go?
Well, they performed in Veneta a couple of times.
They did. You're right about that.
Right, and then they were at Autzen Stadium. In fact, they attended the first Twister show after they did a concert.
Wait. What was it?
And Huey Lewis played Elvis in that show.
Oh my! Wait. Huey was part of. You're right. Huey. How was Huey? Huey's stepdad was a big beatnik in New York. How did he? He was in your acting troupe there?
No. He came to perform with the Dead.
He did.
I think, and he did, because we didn't. Well, actually, we were at the show, but I don't remember why you. Anyway, he was there, and Ken said, "Well, here, we want you to play Elvis," and so in the first show, Huey played Elvis.
What Twister? It always seems to fluctuate with me because, I mean, when did it actually start? 73 or the 90s or when? When did it? Because Huey was not on the map in, I think. I mean, when I think about the 70s in Oregon, like the Veneta show in 72, that was outdoors. There's a tape of that. I mean, there's video of that. And then through the 70s, when the Dead would come back, they were playing the football stadium. And then one year, they played MacArthur Court, and then eventually wound up at the Holt Center for a couple of years. Amazing shows there. But when did that Twister, the first ever Twister show was 93 maybe? Or when was it?
Let's see. The question is, again?
Well, yeah, the question is, I mean, when you say Huey played Elvis, that could not have possibly been in the 70s. So I'm trying to get a date on you said the first Twister show, the Dead showed up for that. I'm just trying to figure out what year that was.
Dan, do you remember when the first Twister show was that we did at Autzen? It's coming.
It's fine.
Right. 90?
Yeah, that sounds exactly right because they played Outson in 90. So that, but I mean that there's no way that you were out there in 72. That there's no way that was the first show. I mean that was the first maybe the biggest show ever, or I don't know. I mean, you guys were doing it before that.
Say that again.
Well, what I'm trying to get at just chronologically is that what I'm hearing is that there were some troops around. What was the year? I mean, you were at the Creamery early 70s. When was the first time that you started to collaborate with Kesey? Obviously, well before 90.
Oh yeah. Collaborate.
Well, how long were you employed? How long were you employed at the Creamery?
20 years, I guess.
Okay, so you through the 70s, you were primarily working at the Creamery and then acting in these different troupes in the Eugene area. But you also, at that point in the 70s, also knew you were you obviously had met Kesey. But when you first started Do you remember the year you went and said, I want to be part of this group? When was that?
Never.
No, when he contemplated it, didn't say anything, and then a couple weeks later you were there. Was that when was that?
We met everyone on the 4th of July in 1972. Everyone, because we went to the party.
Right. Oh, Jan, welcome to the dance. It's so great to have you on. I mean, so that was 72, but then like I'm saying, the first collaborative effort, that's 18 years before the quote unquote Twister show at Alton Stadium. So what was the first collaboration with you and Ken?
It would have been, it was after you quit drinking, because that was 83.
Wow.
And then it was like a year after that. So 84.
Wow. Holy cow. So were you doing little Trick or the Squirrel meets Double the Bear? What was that collaboration?
No, that was our Xenia.
And that was the old Wiley with Schuster. You know Schuster?
Yeah, Schuster, yes.
Freaking genius. And Art Maddox. These guys are salt of the earth. Like you, man. You guys
Art just died.
Dude.
Yeah, about a 2 month ago, maybe.
You know, man, I'm so... He you know, my second book was written about... part of it was focused on the Merry Pranksters and all their side projects, and he's in the book, and I struggled to connect with him, and I had a feeling he was not doing well health-wise, and I'm so sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, I had to track him down because I hadn't heard from him in so long, and I started searching for him, and Black Maria started looking for him too. Finally we got to his family back east, and they said, "Oh no, he's been in a nursing home," and then about a month after that, he was gone.
I'm going to send you those interviews. I'm going to put those up today in honor of Art Matt. Did you collaborate with? Because that was like Mason Williams' time for Kesey. You know, like Mason would go out there and you know there was a parrot chewing bark off the side of the farm. I mean, Mason.
Rumiaka. Yeah.
Yeah. He had an. So I mean, I'm just trying to get the Dietz, the like that '84 period. Do you remember? What you guys were working on at that time?
No, I'd have to call Jan back in.
It's fine. It's fine. You know,
she's my memory.
Yeah, she's great. You're doing great, man. We've been cooking here for an hour 20. I mean, I want to just run through the 4 L's of my show, and then we can put a wrap on set 1 here with Philip Dietz. Happy Thanksgiving to you, by the way, my man.
Yeah,
So one of the L's on my show is leadership, and I kind of wanted you to talk about the leadership qualities that you think are most important in humanity and society today, and what could be. I don't want to just say what were the great leadership qualities about Ken Kesey, because I see Chuck Kesey and I see Ken Babs and I see Philip Dietz. And I see all these amazing leaders, and you were all around these cats, and, I wonder I couldn't think of ask a better person at this time when, quote unquote, the leaders we have are about as unleaderlike as possible. What are the qualities that you believe need to come to the forefront for real leadership to come back to the forefront?
Truthfulness. Pretty simple. Being truthful.
You think the pranksters were truthful? I'm just going back to your group. I mean, they weren't particularly monogamous people. No. I mean, when you say truthful, just like not living in an alternative reality. I mean, again, some people would say Kesey was in his own universe, but that's what made him so freaking brilliant. But at the same time, I go back to that whole creamery thing. It's handshakes, trust, and commitment and honoring of that word. But what does truthfulness mean to you?
Well, for me, it's just that you're really telling it the way it is. You're not adding your own spin on things. Ken always said, "I only lie to my friends."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was his honest self. I mean, on the stage, just in your experience, like, especially in the heat of the moment, tension is high, not always like comfortable with, don't necessarily trust everybody on the stage to deliver the way they should, or maybe somebody's not picking up their pulling their own weight. What's the best leadership? I mean, Coltrane used to walk up to Miles and say, when he first joined him, what do you want me to play? What do you want me to play? And Miles just kept turning his back on him. And then Train realized after a while, he just wants me to be myself. But it took him, that was non-verbal leadership. In the heat of the moment in acting, what are the best forms of leadership in your mind? Sorry to stretch you out here.
No, I'll say not breaking your character so that you don't interrupt the flow between actors and the communication. It's just honestly talking to each other.
Or not, or are you saying do your job and don't get into other people's hair, even if they're flailing around or scuffling? Don't lose sight of what your focus is and your character.
Yeah, because it doesn't help.
It doesn't help. I mean, it's just like a team in some ways.
Acting is really teamwork, and it really truly is. A lot of people don't really recognize.
Well, let me ask you then. How can you talk about an example in your career when cats on the stage weren't doing their job as part of the team? Sometimes musicians will say, I just have to pick up the slack for other people, and I'm going to let them know through the music that they're not pulling their own weight. How did you work with that? Because it's not always seamless.
I don't think I can answer that question.
Oh, that's a perfect answer. Tell me about, in your mind, the lineage of the prankster movement, and who were the people that Kesey, not writers, or maybe they were, who were people that he looked at from a prior age, generations, even ages before, that he was not necessarily modeling, he was doing his own thing, but what's the lineage of the pranksters? What was going on? Was it vaudeville? What was the predecessors in the lineage of the pranksters?
Well, I think one of them would be Burroughs.
And why?
Maybe I shouldn't choose Burroughs.
No, I've heard that thrown out there before.
Hunter Thompson, of course.
Just because he was so brilliant and unpredictable, or just, with words?
Ken had read the classics too. You've got to. Okay.
Okay. Even to this day, when you see these cats, like Mountain Girl, did you ever cross paths with Mountain Girl?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I talk to her about once every 2 weeks. She's hiding out just like I am.
Oh, you still talk to her once every couple weeks?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude, she is the hippest cat I have.
Hey, your interview with her was really good, and I hope you go back.
Well, I've been trying. They are hiding out, man.
No, I know.
You put in a good. Please, next time you talk to her, be like, Jake Feinberg's a good. I think for me, I never saw any shows. I came on the scene late. I'm just a rogue journalist. I think a lot of people are saying, "Who the hell is this person?" But yeah, you clearly you heard that interview, and I could have gone on for hours with her.
Yeah,
she's phenomenal.
Yes,
she was she part of that 35 person contingent at the Kesey farm with her kids, or was she?
Oh yeah. When she was here, when she was around, she's there all the time.
What's and people will say,
Or she
yeah, go
she
ahead.
lived with Jerry, of course, and so she
Yeah,
wasn't
but
out
I
there.
mean, Garcia was. Did you? I mean, Garcia would only really come up uh, during the tours, or but he. I mean, he had several kids up there with Mountain Girl. So I mean, did he? How often was he up there?
Not very often.
Yeah, I
You
assume
know,
that. Yeah. Well, a lot of people will say, Phil, that like on this interview, we've been rocking away for 90 minutes, but it's not the old line is you'll never remember what they said, but you'll remember how you felt. And I just think about Babs and Walker and these and Hagan, Cassidy, who was gone before you were on the scene,
yeah, yeah.
Kesey, Chuck, Dear Dick, all these people, Mountain Girl, and it goes on and on. Gretchen Fetch, all these people. Um, what's the feeling that you get when you think about these people? Not that I mean, I know you're part of it. It's just the beats. I mean, Wavy Gravy was a teenage beatnik. Bab says that the pranksters fell in between the Beats and the hippies. Um, they're
That's right. What Ken says is we fell in between. We fell into the crack in
the
between.
crack. Yes.
Yeah, we fell into the crack in between the beatniks and the hippies. We were crackers.
Oh my God, that is so freaking
That's
great.
his quote.
Wait, is that Babs or Kesey?
That's Kesey's
Oh, it's
quote.
so let me ask you a question, Phil, because what were the Beats, and what made the pranksters different from the Beats and different from the hippies? The crackers, as he said.
Yeah.
I mean, were they trying to like toe the line between obviously doing drugs like not hard. I mean, everything's changed in this country when hard drugs hit the market. I'm talking like LSD, marijuana. That's kind of the hippies, and then the Beats were a sophisticated group of writers and musers and provocateurs. I mean, I don't want to even. I shouldn't have even given you that kind of fodder. But I'm always searching for the nuance, because it's a bold statement to say we fell in between two iconic social groups. I mean, the Beats and the hippies. So what made the pranksters unique from those two groups?
LSD.
Wait, I mean, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
I was a beatnik for a very short period of time when
I love this. I knew you were a beatnik in New York, weren't you?
No, in St. Louis.
Insane. So what did that? Were you wearing like slippers and a beard? Like what were you looking like?
Well, you boat neck shirts.
Oh my God.
Drink Chianti wine.
Oh man. Can you send me a picture of you from that time? I need that picture. Here's the bottom line.
I saw Ferlin Getty came and performed in St. Louis. What's his famous one? Starts, Johnny has a patch on his ass.
Oh my.
Johnny has a dog named Spot. Spot does not have a patch on his ass. Oh, Coney Island of the Mind.
Coney Island of the Mind.
And that was the time when everyone would just you'd click your fingernails for applause. You'd click your fingers.
Oh my, dude! See, this is so hip, man. This is so hip, Dietz. So you were a beatnik for a minute, and then you're just sort of a cottage grove. You're a creamery cat. I don't know. You're not a hippie at all.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say I. Well, I spent the '60s in San Francisco.
You did. How did we gloss over? We got to do part 2, man. Let's just before I let you go for part 1. What's the feeling that you get when you think about all these characters that you've had a chance to collaborate and commune with, and ultimately be connected to for so many years in this life? What is the feeling that you would describe?
It's been absolutely delightful. These are all really super fine people, and it's like Jerry came out to the farm, and we sat around Ken's round table, and just listening to him talk is just enlightening. I don't have anything to say, but when you get together two brilliant, brilliant people, just to listen to their dialogue is, for me, that's remarkable theater.
Dude, I mean, just let me hang there, man. Let me soak it up. I cannot imagine what those conversations must have been like. I mean, but I mean, I guess, for my kids and all these young cats, the hippies, I mean, you could say that all of a sudden 75 million cats were out in the marketplace at that time with a lot of money, and they fundamentally changed a lot about society, and not all of it for the better. But now we have millennials who are being crushed under the weight of debt, looking not to have the same kind of opportunities or avenues to get ahead in society because of the crushing cost of living, and a move towards conformity. And I just wonder when I think about Babs and I think about all these guys, especially, they're still here. You guys are still with us, and it's so important. What are the intrinsic values that we have kind of lost in this material world that are at the forefront of pranksterism? I mean, what would be those values that need to come back for the younger generations?
The pranks. Pranks have gotten lost here.
What have they turned into? Is it something about don't take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously? Or I don't even know what is that. Because Walker went through the whole thing about pranking. I mean, Kesey could get up at a Vietnam rally and say, by the way, all the cats with the pins on their lapels, they're the FBI agents. And then he'd start singing, or he'd get on the harmonica and play Home on the Range. And the next thing you know, everyone's disarmed. But that's not really a prank. That's just genius.
Yeah.
I mean, are you talking about people taking themselves less seriously, less vain? I'm trying to hang on to something, because someday the pranksters won't be here. Someday I won't be. I mean, I just want to pass along the essence of that whole thing. And if you can encapsulate that, what would it be?
Kesey.
The crackers.
Well, I guess you had to be there when. I mean, if you knew the guy, you loved him, and there's no one like him.
Did he ever have an off day? Like, what was? I mean, aside from the diabetes,
yeah.
I mean, like, if you went, were there times where there's like, wow, this was like a normal time. This was like normal. Like it was not like insane prankster. Like, were there days like that where you could just go over and maybe, just watch a ball game and just hang?
Oh yeah. No. Football on Sunday was always, the Sundays were always just lovely days out at the farm. If it was a nice day, there were always 20 to 35 people out there.
Dietz, man, dude, I'll get this up. You rocked this interview, man, and thank you for. I hope it was fun for you, and
No, yeah, you made it very easy, Jake.
Oh, thank you, man. I knew it. Yeah, no, I've become pretty good at this, but man, like, thank you for all your contributions, and it's always like it's just cool to keep picking people off and finding other cats, and maybe I'm not holding my breath. Maybe one day Hagan will come. Hagan will come to the table, but it's okay. I mean, it's important more than ever before, because we are really churning out a lot of sheep and not enough shepherds. And Kesey was the shepherd, but all the cats around you, including yourself, in your own way, were independent thinkers. So, and we got to get back to that. So, bless you, man, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, Jake. Thank you.
Later on.
Bye.
Bye. Never trust a prankster. Philip Dietz rocking out on the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll be back with Justine Bennett in a little bit.